Well, hello and welcome back for another look at the X-Files. Today we'll be checking out Hell Money, episode 19 of season 3. Debuting March 29th, 1996, Hell Money places Mulder and Scully smack dab in the middle of Chinatown as they investigate a lottery where losing costs you an arm and a leg. Literally. In the middle of San Francisco's Chinatown, we've got a gentleman who's acting a little jittery, but going into this abandoned building should definitely help ease the tension. He runs into another man, and unfortunately, I don't speak any kind of Chinese, so I have no idea just what the hell they're talking about. Anyways, our friend stabs the guy, and then he gets confronted by some spooky Chinese ghost faces. Already this looks better than the last couple Scream films. Then we cut to a funeral home where a security guard finds those spooky ghost faces and our friend, who's looking pretty toasty. Mulder and Scully are called to the scene because in this show, all law enforcement besides themselves are completely useless.
Yeah, third time this year.
11th time, actually.
See what I mean? Mulder doesn't even live in this state and knows there have been 11 of these murders so far, when this guy only thought there have been 3. They discover some Chinese writing in the cremator where the body was found and call over Detective Glenn Chow to help read what it says.
Yeah, it says Guai. It means ghost.
Ghost?
Oh no, here we go. On top of the writing, they also discover what Detective Chow says is hell money. It's not actual money, but a symbolic offering to the dead to help bring in some good luck. And luckily for the agents, there aren't many places that actually sell this hell money, so that definitely narrows things down. But first, they're gonna head to the murdered man's apartment, one Johnny Lowe.
I don't know.
What about the guards seeing 3 figures that seem to vanish without a trace?
So now we're chasing ghosts?
Who are you gonna call?
Ghostbusters, what do you want? They find some more writing on the door to Johnny Lowe's place, but even Chow doesn't know what it means, so Mulder has him write it down. Johnny's place is kind of a dump, but oddly it does have brand new carpeting. I don't know who's installed it, but they did a pretty shit job.
What about this?
It's a dried frog. I think they're sometimes used as charms.
Scully rummages through the man's things, like she's known to do, but how does she not recognize a dried frog? Anyways, Mulder finds some blood hidden underneath the carpet, so they're gonna have it analyzed. And then what are the odds that we then cut to a man who works for a carpet installation company? Anyways, this man, Sin, has a young daughter named Kim who is really sick, and he's willing to do just about anything to get her the help she needs. Maybe even murder. Or a lottery game, I guess. This is a very special kind of lottery though, because once your name is drawn, there's a second draw. You either come out a millionaire, or they harvest one of your body parts. Meanwhile, the agents hit up an alchemy store straight out of the Elder Scrolls.
She says that it's skullcap root and Chinese angelica. They're used for painkillers.
Does she remember Johnny Lowe or remember selling it to him?
They gotta bug this poor little old lady all because Scully found a dried up frog. The lady does remember selling Johnny Lowe the herbs and even tells them what those characters they found on his door mean.
She says that the house was branded a Hong Jia, a haunted house.
Haunted.
Oh shit, it's Lo Pan. Well, it looks like Mulder and Scully might have some big trouble in Little China. That night at Night Patrol sees some of those spooky ghost face guys and calls in the agents. It seems like they were messing around with an empty grave that was set to be filled the following day. However, Mulder's X-Files senses kick in, and he thinks it might not actually be empty.
Looks like somebody was trying to get 2 burials for the price of 1.
Hey, it's one of those guys from the lottery. He's got so many surgical scars on him, he looks like Frankenstein's monster. It appears as though he was in good health prior to his death, but Scully thinks he's been selling off his body parts. Ah, poor naive Scully. It's much weirder than that. You know, these two come into contact with a lot of cases that involve frogs. We're back at the lottery and Sin's token, or whatever you want to call it, is chosen. Poor guy doesn't win the millions, but he does get the second prize of body part harvesting. Hey, is that China's very own Sonny Bono?
What's this?
Maybe you can tell us. It was found in the body cavity of the man who was dumped in the grave.
Does nobody recognize a frog in this show? Scully starts to question Detective Chow about all this body harvesting that seems to be going on in Chinatown, almost like he might be involved in some capacity. I do enjoy that when the agents need to get aggressive with someone, Mulder tends to stand back and let feisty Scully take the lead. Things get a little heated between them, but Detective Chow does manage to get a hold of the company that put the new carpet in Johnny Lowe's place, so at least they're getting somewhere. And that somewhere leads them to Sin's place. But what happened to his eye? They don't really get anywhere with Mr. Sin because he claims not to know anything besides what he was paid to do. But Detective Chow sure is acting sketchy. Mulder shows Chow the token he stole from Mr. Sin's place, which I'm not sure you can do, but it apparently means wood. They're also a little suspicious because Mr. Sin appears to be missing an eye and they're dealing with body part harvesting, so there might be a connection. Whoa, looks like Detective Chow is next on the list of victims and he gets attacked in his home. The agents head to the hospital to find out what happened, but in the meantime, Mr. Sin gets a visit from Lo Pan. You know, I always thought Lo Pan needed a woman with green eyes, not a man with brown. Mr. Sin wants out of the lottery because he has so much to lose, but as Lo Pan tells him, there is no way out once you've entered. His daughter witnesses the entire interaction, and this will be very important later. By the time Mulder and Scully get to the hospital, Chow has already taken off. The nurses sewed him up and he just quickly hightailed it, but this sets something off in Mulder's head.
What was the hemotype of the blood we found on the carpet padding? Thank you.
O negative.
Len Chow, O negative. Well, that's a coincidence.
Detective Chow seems to be in cahoots with Mr. Sin, so Mulder and Scully head back to his place where they speak to his daughter Kim. She doesn't have much for them to go on, but she does tell Mulder that token he has also correlates to eye in Chinese. With this new development, Mulder now thinks they're playing a rather deadly game. But in order to find this game, they make their way to an organ procurement organization where they find out Chinese men have been coming in to have their typing and antigen workups done for organ donation. But when someone compatible is found for the men, their doctor claims they left the area. Mr. Sin really can't catch a break because not only was his token chosen again, but it looks like he's losing a little bit more than an eye this time. The agents pull up to where the doctor should be, but it just looks like a Chinese restaurant. But I guess if they're in Chinatown, it's just a restaurant? Well, until Detective Chow makes his way inside. Chow even seems to have a change of heart because he knows if Sin dies, then so will his daughter. Oh, so they've been cheating these men the entire time. You know, you'd think you'd be able to trust a back alley lottery system where if you lose, they take a body part. I guess you can't trust anybody these days. Everybody can relax, Mulder and Scully are here. It's all in the reflexes, Lo Pan. I don't know what's with Chow, but even when the bad guys are caught, he still won't tell Mulder exactly what is going on. Even though they caught the men that were in charge of this game, no one wants to talk or even claim that they saw anything. And as for Chow, well, he's kind of vanished. Well, not quite, but the next time anyone sees him, he's gonna be charbroiled. Hell Money is a good episode. It's nothing amazing, but it's a solid entry. This is one of the few times where there really isn't anything paranormal in the episode, so would it really be classified as an X-File? Those guys with the white masks were kinda spooky, but I don't think they were paranormal. What I enjoy most about the episode is the focus on a completely different culture. It's always fun when the agents investigate something that involves different customs and traditions, and it's something I wish the show had done more of. There is a decent amount, don't get me wrong, but with all the legends and myths worldwide, there is a ton of untapped potential. Now obviously, it's hard to properly represent legends from around the world when you're stuck in Vancouver, Canada, and only have a limited budget to work with, but I always appreciate it when they at least put in the effort to try. Also, is it a coincidence that both this episode and Big Trouble in Little China both take place in San Francisco's Chinatown? On top of that, you've got James Hong, who appears in both, and even Deep Throat spoke to Egg Shen. I'm just saying, there might be something to this. The episode was written by Jeff Flaming and directed by Tucker Gates, a newbie to the series who would only direct one other episode, Season 4's El Mundo Guerra, and I can see why he only directed one other episode. Even though Jeff wrote it, it was Chris Carter who came up with the initial idea of what he described as a pyramid scheme for body parts. Jeff took Chris's initial idea and merged it with two of his own. The first involving a lottery system, and the second a wealthy corporate entity who has control over the Chinese people. Chris Carter took his script and helped streamline it a bit because the three stories didn't exactly flow well together initially. The one thing Jeff wanted was to have Scully be the one who was right by the end of the episode, but for whatever reason it was decided that Mulder be correct yet again, which I think only serves to hurt Scully's character over time when she's always wrong. Co-producer Paul Rabwin wasn't a fan of the story. He felt there really wasn't anything paranormal about it, and if you took Mulder and Scully out, it would have played out exactly the same. However, my counter to that is that Mulder and Scully were the only ones asking real questions. If they had not intervened, then Sin likely would have died, even with Chow's involvement. The only reason Chow started to get more involved was because Mulder and Scully were sniffing around, and it would have come out at some point that he knew a little more than he was letting on. All the exterior shots of Chinatown were shot in Vancouver's Chinatown. The gambling hall where the lottery took place was shot inside the Wise Hall. That's the Welsh, Irish, Scottish, English Hall in Vancouver, BC. The production crew created a balcony in the hall with the idea that once filming was done, the balcony would be removed. However, the owners of the hall liked it so much that they decided to keep it. And if you look at photos of the hall now, you can still see the balcony that was put up all those years ago thanks to the X-Files. All the vases and tiles used in the episode were all designed by the prop department, although it probably would have been easier to just hit up a thrift store for all the vases. The scene where the frog comes out of the man's chest first used the real actor with a fake torso, then when the frog was set to come out, they placed the torso itself without the actor onto the table, and an animal wrangler safely pushed the frog through a small opening. Hell money is a real thing. It's a form of joss paper, which are papers burned as a means of offering to deities or the dead. Hell money itself are made to look like real banknotes, but are burned as a way of tying up any loose ends the deceased may have financially once they've passed into the afterlife. It's believed that even in death, souls may need to bribe officials in the afterlife or even use it to atone for their sins. Apparently, giving hell money to someone that is still alive is seen as very disrespectful and may even be taken as a death threat or curse. In 2022, a little controversy brewed when red envelopes containing hell money were handed out at the University of Toronto as part of its Lunar New Year celebration. Whether it was intentional or not, many of the Chinese students were deeply offended, and the university had to put out an apology. The school tried so hard to be inclusive and promote diversity that they couldn't be bothered to do even the slightest bit of research, and instead sent out the equivalent of a death threat. Oh, and if anyone wants to buy me a screen-used prop from the episode, it's only $750 on eBay. Hell Money boasts a fairly big cast. First we have Michael Yama, who played Mr. Sin. Michael was born in Hawaii in 1943 and has been in quite a bit, but mostly small supporting character roles. Michael also worked as an assistant director on the 1970s drive-in film Teen Lust, which I'm assuming is a Porky-style movie, but the funny part is the director of that film was James Hong, who was under the name James Hall. So these two directed a 70s teen sex comedy and then 20 years later appeared in the X-Files together. Unfortunately, Michael is no longer with us, having passed away July 30th, 2020 at 76 years old. Next we have B.D. Wong as Detective Chow. For me, I'll always remember Wong from Jurassic Park as Dr. Wu. It was a small role, but it's always what I first think of when I see him. He's also done voice work in stuff like Mulan, and has appeared in 230 episodes of Law & Order SVU. Next up, we have Lucy Liu, who may be the biggest name for all the normies out there anyways. The X-Files was one of her early roles before she made it big, but just a few years later she would land a role in the show Ally McBeal, which is what would really propel her career forward. After that it was the Mel Gibson film Payback, Charlie's Angels, Kill Bill, and so on. Lucy and David were also apparently dating during this time, which makes me wonder if he has a clause in his contract that states any woman he's currently sleeping with must make a guest appearance. Lastly, but my personal favorite, we have James Hong as the hard-faced man. James was born February 22nd, 1929, making him 95 years old. I'm starting to wonder if he isn't actually Lo Pan, his character from Big Trouble in Little China. The man has been in everything, from a small memorable role in Seinfeld to voicing Mr. Ping in the Kung Fu Panda movies. James Hong is a legend, and anytime he pops up in something I'm watching, it just makes it that much better. You'd think at his age he would have retired, but there is no stopping this man. He's still going as strong as ever, and I hope we have him around for a long time. Hell Money currently sits at a 7 on IMDb, and I think that's fair. It's not going to win any awards, but it's still a fun, solid watch. Next up, we have one of the series' best, when Scully has to recount her experience of a UFO encounter with an eccentric author in Jose Chung's From Outer Space. So what are your thoughts on Hell Money? Let me know down in the comments because I'm really curious. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you have a great weekend, and please stay spooky.
Friday.
Cremated alive? What a way to go.
A mysterious ritual will decide who lives
They're playing some kind of game.
and who dies.
Something
bad is coming.
A brand new X-Files.
Death is nothing to be feared.
Friday at 9.